We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And we are continuing with our Marvel Replay series today, this time with part 2 of our coverage of Infinity War. If we thought last week was an emotional roller coaster filled with lots of sadness and much anger, we're going to tip all the way to sadness this week. Still some anger, but a lot of sadness because y'all know the ending. If you haven't listened to part 1 of our replay, definitely suggest that you go back and do that. We had a good time. We think you will too. But now we are here and we are going to talk about essentially everything from the Battle of Titan onward to the end of the movie. So also PSA, if you haven't watched Infinity War recently and you didn't do it as you were listening or getting ready to listen to our last episode, please watch it, because you will get a lot more out of this episode. It will be way more enjoyable. With all that said and all that covered, Katie, you're up.
All right, let's get started with the Battle of Titan, or the Battle on Titan, or whatever. On, of, doesn't really matter.
Semantics.
Yeah, it's really not the most important part of what we're going to talk about here. But anyway, we did touch on this a little bit in the last episode because it was honestly a little hard to break the episode up completely.
Yeah.
And so I think we touched on it a lot with the whole Gamora thing and everything that happened obviously on Vormir, and then just like where that takes us. I think the one thing I want to pass up when we talk about the battle on Titan is we're not going to hate on Star-Lord today.
Yeah.
Mainly because we've spent, 2018, 7 years doing that. And so it's not the most prominent thing I think about the replay. I think we all still have residual anger. Bringing up my poo-poo list from last week, he's still obviously on it.
Yeah.
Everybody feels that way. But I think to pick up where we left off, I think Taylor made an amazing point last week, which was, I know, that felt weird.
I'm just going to bask in the glow because I can count on literally one finger the amount of times you said I'd had amazing point, and that was literally the only example. So
yeah, exactly. That definitely felt strange coming out of my mouth. But anyway, she did have a good point when talking about the fact that, quite frankly, if Nebula had kept her mouth shut, we wouldn't have been where we were with Star-Lord reacting the way he did. So I do think she has been added to our poo-poo list. I think that's a very good angle that I don't think we saw. We also had discussed, what was the plan? What was the plan when you got the gauntlet off of his hand? Because quite frankly, it didn't seem well thought out.
No.
So this team failed as a unit. I do think, obviously,
I mean, they did. Endorsement. This team failed as a unit.
I've been watching too much Love Island. I feel like I'm narrating.
Did it together. They failed as a unit.
Yeah. Yeah, at least to be fair, they really did all go down on the ship because they all failed in their own respective ways. And I will say, I do think a lot of what the Battle of Titan, looking back at it now, is really meant to show is that Tony is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see him in how many other movies before this, and we see him be not always the best as a person, making semi-selfish decisions that like aren't fully thought out. Like he gets so close to the point sometimes and then just like runs right past it, aka like
Truly.
Age of Ultron.
He's like, save the world, but create a sentient robot that really hates the world instead. Like,
And is gonna
just to
try and
the
kill
left of the
everyone.
goal. Yeah.
Yay! Yeah, literally. His way of saving the world was realizing humans were the problem and he was gonna exterminate them. Like
Starting with the creator.
yeah, yeah. So that being said, I do think though that it was such a good setup to try and show how strong of an individual and strong-willed Tony himself is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be said that he's one of the few characters who draws Thanos' blood, and I mean, to be fair, does the line of like all that for a little drop of blood or something.
Yeah.
But it is a lot to say. I mean, look at who he just went up against. There were like 6 or 7 of them, strong, mystical, everything, like enhanced. And Tony, your human in a suit, is the one who ended up being the one who did draw blood from Thanos. So I do have to say that to me is I think the big point at the end of the day of that. And also just the whole setup with Strange. Like I think that's really what we need to focus on is this is that turning point where Doctor Strange had said, we only won in one of these futures, which were not all of them as discussed before. I still think he's wrong.
He definitely is. MOM proves it.
Yeah. Right. So continuity problem question mark. I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure there, but I do think that moment with Strange giving up the time stone, I mean like that really is the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we spent most of last episode finding moments to crap on Tony Stark. I think that we are reasonable individuals who can give the man his flowers when they are due. I will say, not only to your point does he draw Thanos' blood, but he does it by himself. Like at this point, every other hero has been completely either disarmed or removed from the calculus
Yeah.
by Thanos in one way or another. And so he's got no backup. You had 6 or 7 people coming at Thanos and nobody drew blood, but it was Tony Stark on his own
Yeah.
who did it. And you're right, it really comes down to his will and his true and pure desire to save the universe. Like he truly understands the gravity of what they're up against and the scale of the calamity that would befall everyone should Thanos win. And he's fighting like the lives of the universe is on the line. And I give him a lot of credit for that. I also think from a purely, visual and aesthetic perspective, the nanosuit is just incredible. I mean, the way he's able to shift I don't know what you would call them, but like the ends of his appendages, it's almost like it reminds me of like a toy that you would have as a kid where like you could take their hand off and it's like a fist in one, or it's like an open hand, or he's got a sword. Like we definitely had toys like that.
All of our Power Rangers.
Yeah, there we go. I was like, why am I like really struggling? Yeah, no, we had some like I'm really sad we
Do you
got rid of
remember
them.
when you took off my green Power Ranger's leg?
I do remember that.
And then I had to tape it back on and I was traumatized.
I honestly, like, I'm surprised the relationship has survived. A little bit of context, I didn't just like take the leg of her Power Ranger off
were
for
fighting
funsies.
with
They
them.
were
They
in
were
a
in a
spar,
fight.
and like my Ranger really had a good kick and just took his leg off at the knee, and there were some tears. There was a lot of like emotions.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm not very good at channeling my emotions in a healthy way. So there was also some real life swinging on Taylor.
Yeah, there was. I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to take his leg off. And then instead, I got punched in the face. So, like, if anybody wanted a glimpse of what our childhood was like, it's like, let's watch a Spider-Man, like, animated show together and, like, be besties. And then on the other side, she's punching me in the face for taking off her Green Ranger leg. So, yeah, like, just imagine that for fun.
It felt super deserved. And to this day, I stand on business.
I mean, I do feel bad. Like, I was not trying to, like, take off his leg. Anyway, back to my point about the nanosuit. It is very cool how he's able to adjust the, like, shape and the functionality for both his legs and his arms throughout. Or even from a like a more defensive standpoint, when Thanos is like really going after him and you're seeing pieces of the suit flake off, he's able to move where they're situated so that he can protect himself. And the one thing I do want to say too about Tony, as it relates to the relationship to Strange here, because you touched on I've seen the millions of possibilities and like this is the one outcome where we win. Tony is basically begging him not to give the stone. He's ready to die. He's ready to make the sacrifice play when Thanos has stabbed him with his own weapon.
Yeah.
He's ready to say, I am going to die here. You keep that stone protected. He doesn't know where it is.
Yeah.
He does not have access to it right now. But if you choose to save my life for that stone, we all know what's going to happen. And you can tell that's not lip service. That is true conviction. And he looks so disappointed when Strange does make the choice to give the stone. And he just looks at him with confusion and anger and almost a level of betrayal when he's like, why would you do that? Like, why would you make that choice and condemn the whole universe for me? Why?
Well, and we have to remember, like, I know we all make jokes and I know the fan fiction writes differently, but like at the end of the day, these guys just met. Like,
Yeah.
that is such like an important factor of this is they've known each other for 8 hours, maybe. Like, I'm not quite sure how much time passed, but nobody slept to my knowledge. So we are 8 hours into this. And Strange does make that almost his version of a sacrifice, because I mean, I guess in the terms of, if we just go off of what has been given to us, what is in universe, he saw all those possibilities and that is the one, which means he knows we all get dusted, which means he knows he gets dusted
Yeah.
if this all goes through. So clearly, like, he does know enough to believe that's the right point and to sacrifice not just himself but half the universe for it. I do think at the end of the day, we talked about this last week and it warrants being brought up again. Why Strange at no point use the time stone really does bother me.
Yeah. It's a huge plot hole.
It is, and I think it's almost made worse by the fact that they literally have Thanos one line it and say, like, why haven't you have such a powerful thing, why haven't you been using it? Like,
Yeah.
even Thanos is like, what the heck? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like, you're literally fumbling the bag so hard
Right.
that like it's like I respected that they fought so hard, right? Like, you can see how hard they're all trying. They're really giving their all. But then it like really POs me, to be honest, when at the end I know we said no Peter Quill slander. It is not about the moment he punches Thanos. It is actually my piece where I was really frustrated with him. And for a little bit of context, I watched the movie prior to last week's recording. I rewatched these sections again because I was like, I want them to be fresh. And what really PO'd me in my most recent rewatch of this last hour was when Thanos gets the time stone. Strange has given it to him, and he is now left through using the space stone. And Peter Quill had tried to go after him, whatever, and then Quill falls down, gets back up, he looks at Tony, and he goes, did we just lose? Like, yeah, dummy, because you punched Thanos in the face. Okay, that's the last thing I'll say about that. But then also because your plan was dumb, and you didn't use the most powerful weapon you had in your arsenal. And even when you did punch Thanos in the face, and you had the opportunity to undo it, you chose not to. So yeah, you did lose, and you deserve to lose by that plan.
Well, and the thing there too, though, I can't believe I'm semi-defending Star-Lord in this moment because I've spent 7 years hating on him because of this moment. But like I said last week, that's why I have a running poo-poo list of this movie, because quite frankly, there's quite a few people who, now that I'm looking at it, I'm
like
really looking
every
at it,
rewatch, you're like, actually, that was dumb, and
Yeah,
then you just
right?
add someone to the like list.
Yes, literally. So, like, okay, now that I'm really looking at it, though, yes, that was wrong. But at the same time, let's be real, Star-Lord is not the smartest man on that planet. I mean, even if we were trying to be nice and say out of the men, because if we're being real, Nebula is an alien of some sort. So is Mantis and Drax. Of the 4 people who are literally human, he is the last on the list.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not forget the whole, like, what master do you serve? What do you mean, Jesus? Like, let's be real.
I mean, you're talking 2 super geniuses in Parker and Stark, and Doctor Strange, who's a literal medical doctor, not only that, but a neurosurgeon and one of the best in the world. So,
Exactly.
excuse me, you do not measure up in the intellect department, objectively.
Well, and let's not forget that Doctor Strange spent all of his time reading all of the ancient texts
Yeah.
from Kamertage.
Yeah.
Like, this man, to your point, yes, medically and like just like actually book smart, yes, obviously, but he there's a reason this man came around and within a movie and a half essentially was the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
Like, there is a reason that happens. And so I don't really almost blame him. There were 3 much smarter people there that should have known better. 1, should have had a better plan. 2, and 3, again, why don't we have you using the time stone at any given point?
Yeah.
Are we really going to sit here, like, even if the excuse is we're not supposed to be using it, are we really going to sit here and now decide to play by the rules when we're facing a threat that big that is not playing by the rules? Like, that is my biggest qualm with superhero movies at almost any given time. And it is why I enjoy movies like the Thunderbolts with those types of characters, because they're not afraid, and like Daredevil and things of that nature, they're not afraid to start crossing lines that a normal hero probably would not have crossed. But if you actually started meeting, like the Punisher, great example,
Yeah.
if you actually started meeting the villains where they stand, you would win.
Yeah.
But because you try to have a moral code, and so like, okay, if the moral code was we don't use the time stone, hey, guess what? He has 4 stones or 3 stones.
And he's using them.
No, I'm sorry. He has 4 stones at this point.
Yeah.
Because you and the Mind Stone are the last 2, and they were both initially on Earth. And to your point, he is using them all. He is using every single one of them. So why are we not using D1 we have? I just don't get it. I don't think it's right. I think you guys are all far too smart for this. And so that is a part of why I was like, Star-Lord, you've been getting your crap for years for that moment where you punched him. You acted on emotion and you acted selfishly. However, the bigger plan itself, I still don't understand the end goal of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why the time stone wasn't being used. And therefore, that is on the 3 much smarter individuals that should have had a better plan and should have had a better goal and should have gone into that battle with a more thought out tactic than they did. Like, I can't blame him for that.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's just like they really screwed the pooch on Titan. And like, we're going to talk about the Wakanda situation. That's literally the next section. But it's so frustrating because even though things clearly didn't go to plan in Wakanda, they ultimately achieved their goal. There were plans and then there were like emergency contingencies, and they went to the emergency contingency and they did what they had to do. But it was the folks on Titan who screwed the pooch that then undid the work that the Wakandan team was able to do to stop Thanos.
Correct.
Like, that is the end result here, is what happened on Titan is ultimately what screwed the universe.
Yes, because at the end of the day, regardless of how things went, if Thanos had never gotten that time stone, when Wanda had destroyed the Mind Stone, it was over.
Yep.
And that's a period full stop moment.
Yep.
I totally agree that the folks on Titan are the ones who did screw everybody over. And obviously, I know we're not talking about Endgame, and quite frankly, I haven't watched Endgame in a million years. But I do know Tony comes back and is like, it's your fault.
Yes.
It's your fault. We weren't together. And now I won't get into
I
the
just
whole
growled into the mic.
I felt that.
Visceral reaction. Catch us next episode, folks.
No, literally. But he comes back and he's essentially blaming Cap, which is funny because we won't get into this right now, but if we really go through the timeline of events, like somehow, like I just don't see how we change that narrative like that. But anyway,
the spin is wild.
The spin is crazy. This spin is crazy. But if we're really going to be real about this, regardless, the fact of the matter is not only were most of the Avengers, or like relatively air quote, like Avenger adjacents there in Wakanda, to your point, they were succeeding in their end goal.
Yeah.
Your team up in space were the ones who failed.
Yeah. Which ultimately undid the success of the team in Wakanda.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the whole Wakanda thing, because I will say there were moments people messed up here.
Yeah.
And that's across the board. I mean, as we've gone throughout the movie, we've seen where people fell short and how Thanos or his children were able to essentially fill in the gaps there, and that's how they one up them.
Mm-hmm.
So I will start by saying, back to what I even said last week, why are we worried about a microwave? No. Like, I just,
The fact that you have no love lost for Vision
I
just
don't.
continues to make me chuckle.
Here's the thing. I do like him as a character.
Yeah.
I do. And you know what, Wanda, love who you love. Like, I won't judge you on that, girl. But at the end of the day, he's a robot. I'm so sorry, but like, I just don't know. Like, I know I said it last week, but the whole like, we aren't trading lives. He's not living. Like, and by doing that thought process, you are literally low key trading his life for half of the universe. If we look at how this played out,
Yeah.
if they would have figured out just destroying the stone sooner or doing whatever they had to do, I don't know. I'm sure the time stone has no like actual restraints, though. I guess we've never seen what those could or could not be. But like if they had done it before, I don't know. Maybe it would have been harder for him to just like go back in time, or at least they could have interfered while he was trying to go back in time. I don't know. I'm not sure about all the whatevers of this all. But regardless, like it would have been more effective instead of having him up there
Yeah.
with the Mind Stone hanging out while Shuri's trying to pull it out of his head without damaging him, which then kept Wanda off the battlefield. And this is where Wanda re-enters my poo-poo list because I love her, but girl, you can't tell me you couldn't have been helping out from up there. You had windows.
Yeah.
Your power does not have limitations. You could have still been helping the team while watching over Vision, because then you leaving Vision screwed him over, but you were needed on the battlefield as well. She was just standing there.
Yeah, that part was like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, I understand that he was being protected by, members of the Wakandan Guard. And like, Shuri herself has proven to be, I'm talking even obviously pre Wakanda Forever, has proven herself to be a formidable warrior. We see her fighting in the end battle, I believe it is. Well, at some point during the first Black Panther.
Yeah, she takes on Killmonger.
Yeah, she's not exactly a slouch. There's Dora Milaje and there's plenty of warriors, but let's be honest, non-enhanced individuals against a child of Thanos. That's a tough order to ask of any non-enhanced individual. I don't care who they are. So, you really left the guy with a team that was going to do their best to defend him if necessary, but you did not think that through, Wanda. Like, you are one of the most powerful people there. She could have handed that member of the Black Order, and I don't remember what their name was, but you could have handed that member of the Black Order his butt in 2 seconds. No questions asked. And instead, the Princess of Wakanda was attacked. Vision was attacked again, making him even weaker and less of a formidable foe who's able to even defend himself. Like, what was the thought process here? Answer, there was
No,
none.
you want to know what my thought was? My genuinely thought, I don't even have an English anymore left in me.
This is just the rage.
It's the rage. Rage against the machine, because literally, because I don't understand why we didn't just go, hey, so let's repair Vision. We have one of his fathers here, and we have Shuri. Why don't we just repair him? Because how many times are we like, Earth's mightiest hero? Like, Cap says it multiple times. Earth's greatest defender. Okay, so why don't we make him usable?
Yeah.
Why are we like, let's make sure he lives and we take the stone out, blah blah blah? No. Why don't we have him use the stone? What is with them not using the stone? I just don't understand.
It truly is mind-boggling. And like, the other thing to what you were saying about like, why don't we make him an actual
Asset?
useful member of the team,
Yeah.
is like, don't you think, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, I'm not a genius or a tactical mind when it comes to battles, but don't you think that perhaps having a functional Vision who is able to defend himself and thereby the stone within his forehead is a better choice than trying to get the stone out? I don't know, that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
Yeah.
But like, who am I to say?
No, that's exactly where I'm at. Like, I'm sitting here. Okay. For any of you who have ever played like Marvel Rivals or Marvel Contest of Champions is a good example too. We all know how these characters are ranked. This is like Pokemon level. Like we all know we they have their rankings, they have their like upgrades, all that crap. If you told me that Vision, the Scarlet Witch, and Thor were on a battlefield, I'd be like, okay, cool. So they won.
Yeah.
We don't even need anybody else. We don't need anybody else. So tell me how we didn't think about repairing Vision to at least win the battle at hand, have the Scarlet Witch out there and have Thor out there and then win.
Yeah.
Really, with Thor and the Scarlet Witch, even before she's like officially the Scarlet Witch, we still should have won. But we'll get to Thor in a moment.
Well, and buy yourself time, right? Like, remove the members of the Black Order and their disgusting horde of whatever the heck those things are. I do not remember them being that disgusting in my first viewing.
No, they gave honestly The Last of Us slightly, and I haven't even like fully seen that show, but I've seen like enough clips to know, and I was like, ew.
Yeah, like mindless horde.
Yeah.
It was horrifying. Yeah, but like finish that battle. Buy yourselves time. I get that Thanos would have come. Yes, okay. Fair point. However, at least you wouldn't have been separated. You would have had a functional Vision who could have used the Mind Stone against Thanos. Like, there were options here. I just don't know why they chose the worst of them in order to defend the universe and with it on the line.
Well, I don't either. And that's kind of my point is like, again, we could have, yes, eventually gotten what we needed and fixed Vision so that he exists without the Mind Stone and everything. But like, that should not have been their end goal.
Yeah.
That should not have been the main reason for what they were doing. I'm pretty sure if Vision, Wanda, and Thor went up against Thanos, even with 5 stones, they would have probably won. She alone was holding him back with 5 stones by
And
her
one
own
hand.
power. Yes, while destroying an Infinity Stone with the other. Like, I don't really know why we didn't do so. Like, that's the one thing about the Avengers I feel like they never really do is think about, like, where are people the best asset?
Yeah.
And where do they work the best on the field? And I think, like, we get a small glimpse of that at the beginning of Civil War when we actually see them all working together.
Yeah.
We see how everybody pulls their weight. But in, like, especially a lot of these big battles, and I get it, like, you can't always plan, but, like, they don't consider what would work the best half the time. And it aggravates me because, like, you sorely underestimate the rest of your team by doing that.
Yeah. Well, you make them less effective, and thereby your whole team is less effective, and you really run the risk of losing. I mean, how many times did we watch them come close to losing? We watched them almost lose in the Avengers. I can't pinpoint a specific moment, but like clearly there were moments when the tide was not shifting in their favor.
Yeah.
Obviously, in Age of Ultron, ultimately they won in the sense that like they beat Ultron, but all of Sokovia was destroyed. So like that is a really low level win in my opinion. Like literally you did the exact bare minimum, I would say. So like why is that? Because they're not strategic about the assets that they have on the field. And I think you're totally right. That's such a good assessment. And it's like very frustrating.
Yeah, and I just needed to get some backing on this. So just for the record, I put this into Chat GPT, everybody. All right. And I put in, could the Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Thor have beat Thanos with 5 stones? And they said, yes, with teamwork and the right strategy, all 3 of them could have beat Thanos with 5 stones. 1, because the Scarlet Witch can match or overpower him even when he has 5 stones. Thor, with Stormbreaker, can directly wound or kill Thanos, even with all 6 stones. Vision is the weak link because he was injured, and being the literal holder of the 6th stone put him at risk. But it even says, if he had not been nerfed, they would have been able to, he would have been really powerful, and 2, they all would have been able to defeat him. So let's talk about how it literally says if you had the right strategy, this could have been avoided.
Well, and it's also like, and this is the last thing I'll say about this because it pains me deeply to admit this because I've been dancing around this piece and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to. Who puts together the battle strategies? Captain America. And it is deeply, deeply upsetting to me to have to admit that like their strategies are lacking, but he is supposed to be the tactician on the team. He is the man who has the military background. He is the leader. Now, a point in his favor because I will never, ever, ever say that Captain America is less ever, is you're right, in Civil War, in that scene where they are working together, that's a fully Cap idea. Notice that there's not a man called Tony Stark involved.
This is
So,
true.
just saying. I'm just saying. Give the man his props because it does upset me to have to say like where is the strategy here because it's lacking.
I mean, if I'm being honest, a lot of it for me wasn't even the strategy more than the fact that because they were going off of the wrong idea from the start, their strategy probably matched that, but it was wrong.
But Cap's still a leader. Like he's still helping make those
I'm
decisions.
blaming him. Like I'm not defending him. I'm literally saying like again, this whole idea about trading lives. First off, I'm going to say it for the 15th time. Vision is literally not living. Okay? Literally not a living being. Okay? Regardless, that whole concept is why they went with trying to get the stone out.
Yeah.
That was the wrong tactic from the start.
Yeah, I agree.
That was the wrong idea. They were looking too narrowly and they had their horse blinders on. That was the wrong decision from the very get go. They should have been looking at a much wider scale and realizing what this actually was. Because while the team on Titan is the one who, to be fair, really dealt one of the final blows of screwing everybody over, they knew they needed to try and win. Now, did they screw up? Yeah, but they were trying.
Yeah.
Like, I think the biggest issue I had with the team in Wakanda is they had this horse blinder thought process of if we get the stone out, Wanda can destroy it. Instead of thinking, hey, this guy can kill half the universe. So we need to think about our best tactic. Why was Cap saying 14 times, well, he's Earth's best defender and we just lost him, and wasn't thinking, hey, how do we solve that problem?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we can fix him. We can fix him and then he can defend Earth. It's almost like that's the solution. And you have the minds there to have done it.
Well, you have all access to all of that Wakanda technology. And
Right.
Vision is vibranium.
Right.
Like, you're literally in the home of vibranium. Nobody understands that material better than the one
Shuri.
place on Earth there that it is, with the one of the greatest minds in the MCU. You're right, in Shuri.
Right.
Like, and that's her expertise.
Right.
That is literally her bread and butter.
Yes.
Makes no
Well,
sense.
that's why, like, I was sitting there and I was like, so if we're being honest, the strategy itself might not have been the biggest problem. The problem was that they were doing a strategy to the wrong solution and the
they were
wrong
going
end goal.
towards the wrong objective.
Yes. But again, that's still his fault.
Yeah.
That's 100% his fault.
Yeah.
Like, I fully agree. So I mean, listen, I have no issue. I love Cap, but I don't because Endgame happened. So I have no issue being able to sit here and come back and say, what the heck? And I'm even more willing to blame him now after the events of Endgame. Like, I'm more willing to sit there and say, you screwed the pooch just as much. Like, you were not thinking straight here the way you should have been. You were not leading the team the way you should have been. And that's on you. But I will say this. At the end of the day, I have one last member on the poo-poo list. I wouldn't quite have put Cap on it, but I do have one last member.
Who?
And it culminates to our final moments. And that's Thor. You know, I never felt this before watching Infinity War. I never felt it before. But in the moment where he throws Stormbreaker, I just sat there. And you know how you said last week, you were like, you're watching it and you just think like it'll have a different outcome. Even though like we're not delusional. We know how the movie ends. This was that moment, especially for me, where I sat there and I was like, it's going to be different. And I found myself almost anxious, actually, because this dummy, one, threw it at his chest.
Yeah.
And two, decided to be all like, let's have my little speech about I told you I'd come back and get you.
Instead of just pushing it in harder and yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or that.
Or like pushing it in harder and like actively like
killing
you
him.
know, yeah, like I mean you could have punctured a lung, you could have, nicked his heart. Like, what are we doing? Why are we having this like grandstand moment instead of finishing the job?
Here was my thought process too. Push it in harder, sure. Take his head off, take his arm off. Like there were other
So many
solutions
options.
there, but I'm a little unsure why we weren't like I sat there in that moment and I was like low-key screaming at my TV and I was like, oh my God, just kill him.
Yeah.
Even though I know that's not what happens. I literally was like, just freaking kill him. Like, and he didn't. Obviously, then he snapped and I was like, you know what? For the first time ever, I could say that was on Thor. But All right, I'm going to take a step back objectively and say something. Russo brothers, y'all are going to hear it from me next week, but I'll give you your props in Infinity War. It was a great movie. And I will say you did an amazing job at showing how all three of the big members of the Avengers, the big three, if you will, failed individually.
Yeah.
We saw how each one of them contributed to letting down and failing in this mission. And so I do give you that. Every single one of them failed.
I agree. And I think what's cool about that then, and we'll talk about how we feel about Thor's representation specifically, but you see how all three of them then react to that failure, right? Cap becomes someone who's providing support and almost therapy. Tony completely retires and he's like, I'm a dad now. Peace out. That's my full-time job and that's my thing. And Thor goes through his experience. How that was depicted, we will talk about next week. Katie's giving me the stink eye. I mean, that's just, we might have to do 3 episodes on Endgame because the amount of like soapboxes.
I think I could talk about Thor for a single episode.
I mean, honestly, there might be 3 episodes related to Endgame. There's just a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, they do each individually fail, and then we see 5 years on how each one of them is dealing with that. And I think, that's a really smart way to do it. Those are the 3 who, to your point, they're the big 3. They're the ones who lead, and they failed, and we're seeing that. And it's a lot. Before we get into the ramifications, because you just said it, he snapped, right? And it takes a hot minute. There's a pause. So while the movie is pausing before we start to see the ramifications, there's one thing that, now that I've watched this scene twice, tickles me both times. And it is the scene where they finally have opened the force field in Wakanda in order to let those beastly, horrible things through. And they're going and it's becoming the full out battle. And you see T'Challa take off, and then you see Cap take off. And it is just the shot. But you see everybody running, and then you see the 2 super soldiers just absolutely just leaving everybody in the dust. They're like jumping over that gulch. It just brings me a lot of joy, and it makes me very happy.
Honestly, it's so funny you brought that up because if you are a Bucky stan, we all know the discourse after this movie about that. And everybody was like, we all know that man could have ran with them and he chose not to.
That was an active choice on his part. He was like, I'm good in the back.
I
We're
don't need to
good.
be up there. Y'all give me guns against aliens. I'm back here. I'm good.
I'm ill-equipped for this, so peace out.
Yeah, he was like, I'm okay. Thank you though. Thank you. And I think it's so funny you brought that up because I fully saw the other angle of that. So when I watched it, I was like, and there's old man Bucky just back there with the rest of them.
I'm good back here. Thanks, guys. All right, it's time. It's time to talk about what is possibly the worst moments in MCU history. I've watched it now twice in the span of 8 days. I cried like a baby both times. It never gets easier. And it's also time to share my Infinity War story. I promised I would last week.
Have we actually shared these?
I don't think so. So I'll go first, and then Katie, it's all you.
Okay.
I was studying abroad the semester that Endgame came out.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I was studying abroad in Spain, and I was able to see the movie in English, which was very helpful because though I am a Spanish major, that would have been really difficult for me. A lot of words that are not in my common Spanish vernacular at the time. So I was able to see it. Also, picture this. I'm abroad. I have a different internet plan in terms of my cell phone. Very limited internet. Literally makes one call, FaceTime, and it's gone for the month. But I was hysterical. Truly, inconsolable in this foreign country. And I was leaving the theater, and I needed to speak to someone about it. So I called my dear old sister, and I FaceTimed her because, again, I couldn't make an international regular call. So I'm FaceTiming her walking down the sidewalk, hysterical, absolutely inconsolable. She had just seen it. I think I had to wait because of the language issue that I was having about waiting for the English version or whatever. And I was just, there are no words. the looks that I was getting from the Spaniards on the streets of Sevilla about this like hysterical American girl sobbing into her phone. I mean, an iconic moment. And that is my Infinity War story during my semester abroad.
So I fear mine's a little long-winded. So mine actually started. So, okay, keep in mind, guys, we were not going to early showings yet. So, like, early showings still existed. Those Thursday night ones did happen, but that, like, we weren't at them. And at the time, as much of a fan I had an orchestra trip to New York City that Friday. And when we go up there, like, we aren't home till probably at least midnight. So I had to see the movie Saturday. I couldn't go on Friday. Now, here's little Katie, probably, maybe 17, 16, 17. And mind you, all throughout the day, and this is Friday, people have already seen it. People are actively seeing it throughout the day. All throughout the day, I'm like, oh my God, look, that taxi has that group of heroes on the top. And like, I'm like having a field day, right? And I'm like on my social media because I'm with all my friends. So we're, of course, posting all sorts of stuff. And then we go to the Disney store, and like that's where things started to go wrong for me because we went. I don't even know what I bought. I do know exactly what I bought actually. And we're up there and it wasn't important to the plot. But anyway, I know what I bought and I was checking out. And, I don't know what I said, but I said something about like being super excited because I think I was buying something. Yeah, it was definitely something Marvel. So I was like super excited for Infinity War. And the worker was like, I've already seen it. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like,
Run away.
tell me. And then I was like, don't tell me. Don't tell. Actually, don't. And he was like, I won't tell you anything. I was like, actually, I need to know one thing. Can I ask you one question? And he was like, okay. But I was like, I'll whisper it so nobody else has to hear it. And I whisper in his ear, I go, does Bucky die? Like, that's all I cared about. And when I pulled away from him, he kind of just gave me this look. And I just felt my heart drop. I was like, oh my God, no, you're kidding me. And I was like, are you lying to me? And he was like, I'm not saying anything. And I was like, oh my God. And so like my friends have to drag me out of this Disney store, right? Like it's also prime Times Square, New York. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say,
there's a
middle of
line.
Times Square.
Yeah, like there's a line behind me. These people are like, what the heck did this man just whisper to this girl? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm already like distraught now. Like, I'm like, oh my God. Like, guys, I don't know what's happening. No, literally. So then naturally I'm on social media. Well, then I'll never forget this. Tumblr.
Oh, I
Tumblr
know
did
this
me
part
in.
of the story.
Yes. I started to get panicky. So like I started looking a little bit more on social media.
Girl.
And I'll never, ever, ever forget this. The post that came up and it had a list of names and quotes next to each one of them. And it didn't have a caption, nothing. I knew nothing about, I didn't understand it. So I was reading it. And it started with Bucky and it said Steve. And then I don't remember who went. It might have been T'Challa next or it's Groot. Somebody, from the Battle of Wakanda that we now know. But it's their quote. And then it's, and I know T'Challa's is like, this is no place to die.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Groot's is I am Groot. But like,
easy. Low hanging fruit.
Whoa, crazy. And then like, you're just reading. And I think it was by the second to last one, which I think was maybe Peter's because they had Nick's too. And it was when it like finally
No, it would have
clicked
been
to me.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man was the last one.
That's who
before
I
Nick.
meant. I'm sorry. That Peter.
Oh,
that's who I was referring to. Yes.
I immediately was like, Quill.
No, sorry. Spider-Man Peter. That it kind of like clicked for me. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just read? I like shut my phone off so fast. And I was like, oh my God. And I just, my poor best friend was dealing with me that day. And I just remember looking up at her and I was like, I think everybody dies. And she was like, what are you talking about? Because naturally there's no context. So
you're in this like typhoon of your own making and you're just like spiraling and nobody is aware.
Like, what do you mean I think everybody dies? Like, mind you, like we end up on this like cruise ship. She's like the like party cruise. She probably thinks I'm like final destinationing us out here. I don't even know. And I'm just like, oh my God, like the movie, I think everybody dies. Like I'm like at this point just panic. So I eventually go home. I get to see the movie the next day. I'm just sobbing. Like obviously, the worst part is once Bucky started with Steve, it like confirmed everything. Yes. So I was already sobbing. Like Bucky held on. Like I couldn't start yet. I just was almost in shock. And then it just finally, Peter's was the final straw for me, really, because I just was like, oh my God, it's happening. Like I'm watching it happen. And it just was awful. Like, I will have to share it on socials. I have this funny video of me at the end with like my Avengers blanket, walking in the rain. My friend's playing "So You've Had a Bad Day." Like, and then I dropped my blanket on the wet floor. Like, you could just tell, like, the poor girl's having it. But my Infinity War story is still to this day like traumatizing as all heck as far as I'm concerned. Like, I still think about it. I remember all those details. Poor me. Like, I look at pictures from that trip and I'm like, before the Disney store, she was having a field day. She was so excited to see the movie, and now here we were. Like, it went downhill just so quickly. It really did.
What an iconic piece of lore.
I
Like,
mean, listen,
truly.
I at least will have to share the video because it is like ingrained in my mind.
I've seen it. It's actually pretty incredible. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. All right. Amazing. We had a moment of levity, a few moments of levity, but now we need to bring it back down because we actually have to talk about the many deaths. And I'll be honest, y'all know I'm a Spider-Man girl. That one gets me every time. And like, it's been made worse so many years later because obviously you've got like the theories and the thoughts that people have had. The one that kills me is the fact that like because of his spider sense and his like innate ability to heal, that like one, he knew it was coming before it came, but two, that his body just kept regenerating and that's why it took him so much longer to go than everyone else. And then like you see the way that like the moment what is it that he says, Mr. Stark first, I think. Yes, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. And the moment he says Mr. Stark and Tony looks at him, and there's this look in Tony's face like, not my kid, not my boy. And that's like, as sad as I am for everybody else, that's the moment where the sobs hysterical every time. That relationship kills me. The way he like digs into the ash afterward and he's just holding his hand to his face like, this is all that's left of my child. Obviously I know it's not biological, but like that's the relationship. I just like, there are like not words for the level of pain that causes.
See, I actually have to say, as time goes on, and maybe it's also partially because I know how it's now resolved, the pain doesn't feel the same. And I was actually kind of waiting to see if it was going to hit me. And I just kind of sat there. I was like, no, you know what? Like, I'm okay. I'm good. I am fine. Even Peter didn't get me this time, like
Got me twice.
I
Got me
well,
twice.
and I love him. And I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. Like, every other time, like I have broken down, especially by the time it hits Peter. But like, I do think because, again, like, I know how this has kind of played out now. I obviously know they solved the problem. Like, when you're watching this in the heat of the moment, you have no idea what's going to happen next. Like, obviously that's horrible. Like, and then even when I was prepping for Endgame and I did another, like, the next round of rewatch, and that was the second time I watched Infinity War, was rewatching it for Endgame. You're still crying because you still don't know how this is being solved, even though
Yeah.
you're walking into the movie in a week. And so I will say, watching it back, they didn't get me the same way. Although I will say it's funny because, again, like, we seemingly point out what like is most prominent for us. I was sitting there, and this is a question that I've seen since this movie's come out, and I still don't have a clear answer about. I still don't understand why Bucky's arm went with him. I'm trying to understand how that works because it's not a part of him and his gun stayed. So I'm not quite sure why his arm went with him. I'm still confused on that point. When I watched it again, it still bothered me because I didn't understand how the vibranium arm went with him. But regardless, I didn't. Honestly, I think what actually I paid a lot more attention to this time was the very last moments, which were those with everybody kind of not everybody, but relatively the bigger group of people who gathered in the forest, and they were all just sitting there in like disbelief.
Shock. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's Cap that just is like, oh God. And that's just how it ends. And I think it's that moment that I really I paid more attention to who was there. Like, I never noticed Rocket Raccoon was sitting in the back there. I didn't notice that before. And just like how everybody gathered, and just like even when Black Widow comes running up and she's like, what the heck? Like, what is going on?
And the way she like reacts so viscerally to seeing Vision's body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like those are the things that pulled on me more. I didn't cry, but those are definitely the things that I was like, wow, like really seeing these people's I was paying more attention to the reactions this time than the actual actions of people being snapped.
Fair. I do think like we've said, the thing that's cool about these replays is you see something different every time. And like each time it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting to look for, in your case, like the reaction of the characters. But now that I've seen one and I found it intriguing because it's not something I ever paid attention to in the past because I was so busy focusing on those who were snapped. Like now I'm going to look and now I'm going to notice these things and these reactions. And I think it just makes the experience like it gives a depth to the experience because you're able to truly see it for all of its different facets. Like every single one of the actors in this film was absolutely giving. Like nobody phoned it in. So you're able to focus on different characters who are truly showing a gamut of emotions in, different rewatches, which is really, really cool. And then of course, you get that crazy scene of Thanos like resting for the first time, and the end of the film is Thanos will return. Like I just remember watching that in theaters and being like, what the heck? Because that's always reserved for the heroes. It's always reserved for saying, we're going to see more of Cap later. We're going to see more of Thor, more of Tony, more of the Avengers. But no, they're gone. They're either snapped or disbanded. I know Nat's doing some stuff, still to protect during the period of the blip, but that's rough. It is a rough ending to a film in the best way.
Yeah. Well, and then of course we get the end credit, and like I don't need to go into. We all know Captain Marvel gets introduced. That whole movie, like whatever. But I think what I found more interesting about that was, and I always did, but the whole of watching like day to day life happen when the snap is happening. I think that is so interesting. And I do kind of wish, like, and that sounds horrible. Like, that's the doomsday part of me, no pun intended, of like kind of just being like, I wanted to see like the natural disaster almost. Like, but that is the part of me that was like, I wish we would have almost seen more of it because it's so catastrophic. I almost don't understand how they come back from it.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting that you point that out because we talked about The Last of Us earlier in the episode, but that scene with Hill and Fury is really the scene that reminded me of The Last of Us because the first episode of season 1, and this isn't a spoiler, y'all know it's a post-apocalyptic game and show, but that first episode really shows how society as we knew it collapsed within the space of 24 to 36 hours
Yeah.
as the cordyceps infection was truly taking over. You were watching planes fall out of the sky, all these things. And when you see, I believe it's a helicopter in the background, hit a building because, presumably the pilot was dusted, that's the moment I was like, whoo, I'm seeing episode 1 of The Last of Us here, a true collapse of society almost instantaneously.
Yeah. Well, that's why, like, and obviously I know there's a time jump, and I know 5 years a lot can happen, but it really does throw me off that, like, they bounced back from that the way they did. Because not only did, like, to your point, like, I guess the thing that's so different in this circumstance comparing the two is that obviously that the whole thing that happens in The Last of Us, you don't come back from, like
they're still dealing with it 20 some odd years later.
exactly. Like your society is completely changed as you know it. Like there is no going back to that reality versus in this case, like half of the world is still fully in existence. They're not dying. There's not something to run from. And so there is that whole concept of like, okay, like we have a life that we can still continue living, but how does one do that without half the population? Oh, Dave from accounting got snap, that sucks because I was working on a project with him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, like how do you wrap your brain around that on top of like just go back to living? Like it's a very interesting concept that we'll obviously talk about a lot more next week when we start to cover Endgame.
Yeah, for sure. But I think this is everything. We have pretty much covered the big stuff from Infinity War. I'm sure if we wanted to do like offshoots, we could probably talk about Infinity War for like 10 more episodes. There's just so much here. But this is it for our replay for Avengers Infinity War. Definitely make sure that you're following or subscribed on your podcast platform of choice so you are aware of when we have future episodes. We have linked below the website and our Buy Me a Coffee link. If you want to check either one of those out, that's great. Definitely take a peek at the show notes.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are down in the show notes as well. And as we mentioned, we will be starting our coverage and our replay of Endgame next week. That could be 2, that could be 3 episodes. That is to be determined at this point because hey, you don't know. We don't know. We don't know. But make sure you guys are, if you'd like to, and highly recommended to, watching Endgame prior to us covering it so that you do kind of remember and are more up to speed to some of the things we are talking about as well. But definitely make sure you guys give some time to go watch it and also then come back to listen to us as we discuss what is Avengers Endgame. But as always, Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.